I'm Brad Halliday, founder of Medius Ag. At Medius, we know that what you do with your data is just as important as how you generate that data. .Re was originally built for the potato industry through significant input and feedback from potato growers, breeders, trial managers, processors, and Potatoes USA, the USDA-authorized Federal Potato Promotion Board in the United States. Since its release in 2016, Medius has expanded beyond potatoes into over 12 different commodities, showing that quality data collection, management, and analytics drive success. Even though we work with clients across many commodities, we haven't forgotten our roots in potatoes. Let's spend the next few minutes looking at a few of the features available in Medius.Re. As we look at this example as used by Potatoes USA, I should mention that the data accessibility is controlled from the client level all the way to the individual trial level. You can choose what you want public or private. Potatoes USA, for example, has some data that is publicly available, as you see here, while they choose to have some data private. Other clients choose to have all of their data private as it's specific to internal research within their organization. I should also mention that the data structure, so data fields, locations, trial groupings, etc., is completely customizable by each client, and we work with each of our clients to help them build the best data structure. Then we import that historical data so that on day one, Medius.Re is a useful tool. Let's go ahead and look at a few features available in Medius.Re. The first example we might look at is you're looking to pull up information related to a specific variety, whether that's a variety you are interested in using in breeding material, or you want to know how that particular variety has performed across all of your trial sites. Simply right here on the dashboard, or over here on the sidebar, you can go to Find Variety. So I'm going to look for a variety called Lamoka. I'm going to start typing what I know of that variety. And you'll notice here that I've started typing Lamoka, and Lamoka is also known by NY139. So I could have also searched for it by its alias NY139. It'll show me the pedigree here, and this is the source or the breeder where this variety came from. So we'll go ahead and select Lamoka. What that's going to do is it's going to pull up a summary view for me where, again, I can see its alias or other names that it's known by, the partner or source that produced this material, and if I know its pedigree. These trial groups are telling me what groupings of trials this variety has been included in, and our trial blocks are what are often used as locations. Will tell me what locations this variety has existed in, and then what years worth of data I might be able to find for this particular variety. If there's summary information that is written about a particular variety, some notes that are relevant to this variety, they would show up here, and you can also link to a text sheet. You have the ability to generate what we call variety attributes, and these can be custom categories that you define and then specific attributes as well that you define. So in this particular case, we're looking at what was defined for Lamoka is that it's resistant to golden nematode and that there's some internal necrosis that has been observed in this particular variety. This can be beneficial as these are defined when trying to query for particular varieties or filter out varieties as you're looking at data in different parts of the tool. If you wanted to filter out by certain attributes or resistances, you have that flexibility to do so. The second tab is if there's any pedigree information available in the system. It will pull up that pedigree map for you. And then we can go ahead and look at trials. So what trials is going to show us is these are all of our trial groupings. Each one of these trial groups has a different set of data fields and locations, and they serve different purposes. And you can define what you want those groupings to be. So I could go ahead and look at this snack grouping here, and then it's broken down into different regions. They've defined a fresh regions and storage regions. I can see the locations and years I have data available, how many variety records. Most of the time this corresponds to trials for each one of these locations and categories, and then what is the overall aggregate value. So for example, I can see that my yield total in the storage regions is 432.7 hundredweight per acre. Now that unit is defined for that data field in imperial terms, but you can also specify it in metric as well. You get to define what you are collecting. So 432.7 is my average over all of these years, these locations. But if I wanted to see a little bit more of the detail of what makes up that average, all I have to do is click on that, and now I can see the breakdown of every trial site that is represented within that average as a whole. We're just trying to get a high-level view of this variety at this point. The next tab that I have the option of going to is images. So images can be uploaded to a trial. Images can be uploaded to a specific variety record within a trial, or images can be uploaded directly to the variety itself. Any of those methods, if that image is mapped back to the variety that you're looking at, so in this case we're looking at the Lamoka variety, then those images would show up here and you have the ability to scan down through those. So if I were to go ahead and click on one of these images, thumbnails, what it's going to do is pull up the full resolution image for me. Down here in the bottom left, I'm going to see the year, the location, the variety name that I'm looking at, and then this is a sample date to tell me when this particular image was sampled. You can also pull out your thumbnail view here and cycle down through all of those images. Again, it's giving you a high-level view of this variety's performance. The next piece is documents. So there's a full document library that we won't go into in this demo. But the document library, a document much like an image, can be uploaded to a trial. It can be uploaded to a trial group. It can be uploaded to a specific trial block within a trial group. It can be uploaded to a variety, etc. If that document is referenced back to the variety that you're looking at in any way, you have access to it here. So for example, I can look at this report that came out of Florida related to a bunch of different varieties, but Lamoka is included as one of the varieties in this particular report. So as you scan down through, you're going to find that Lamoka does exist in this report. So it's a beneficial way of tracking any documentation as it's related to a particular variety. If you wanted to share this variety with anybody, you can just go ahead and generate this copy link. If you click on that, you'll get this QR code here or a unique URL that when shared with somebody will pull up this exact modal and show them this summary view of this particular variety. So that's option one if you're just looking to find specific information about a variety. But let me go ahead and jump to one of our most used features, and that is going to be what's called analytics. So we have an option here. We could look at any one of these trial groups. I'm going to pick snack here at the moment. It's probably the simplest of the trial groups that Potatoes USA has, so it might make it easy to follow along and understand what analytics is doing. So these are all the different data fields that are collected in trials that are part of SNAC, and they're grouped by what we call a data field group. So we've got field data here, we've got process data, and then we've got some storage data. So just for the sake of this demo, I can go ahead and let's grab specific gravity out of the field. We'll grab our yield total and yield number 1 values. And then I'm going to jump down here to the process data. I want to look at specific gravity again. This is where specific gravity was taken at a processing facility different than out of the field. And then I'm going to go ahead and pull up our defect total here. And then we're going to build this analytics. Now this is just a small set of trials where there's only 11 varieties. These 11 varieties, if we jump here to, let's look at yield total, these 11 varieties had the potential of existing across 4 fresh sites, and then these several 8 here storage sites. Not all varieties were trialed in all sites, as is referenced by some missing values in here. But what I can see is this is my yield total values for all of these varieties across all of these different sites. As we scroll over here to the right, I can see my average for the current year broken down by these categories. If you remember earlier, we saw each one of these locations as a part of a category. I can see a variety's performance across the whole category for a single year, as well as multiple years. And Potatoes USA has defined this to default to 3. If you wanted to change the number of years that you want to average by, you can make that adjustment here. You can also change your column data views to be multi-year, and that would show the multi-year value for each individual location instead of the current year's value. Okay, while we're here in analytics settings, you have the option of turning on Show Z-Score, a Z-score being the number of standard deviations off the mean. So as you can see down here, we have our mean and we have our standard deviation. So this value here for LaMocha is 1.78 negative standard deviations away from the mean. That is our Z-score. We use that Z-score in several ways. One, it helps us in representing the gradients that you see here. We have our gradients turned on. So let's say, for example, I wanted to sort by this total value here. Go ahead and hide analytics. You can see anything in green is going to be the best value. It may or may not be the highest value. It also could be the minimum value. So for example, when you have defect total, you see there's a little -1 here. That means that we are inverted in our Z-score because a lower value is better than a higher value. But in our yield total case, we want to increase our yield as much as possible. So the green value being good is our highest value here. The red value being bad or not as good, or the worst value in this particular set is the red one down here. And then there's this shading of yellow and shading of blue. The shading of each of those blues and yellows gives you a visual indication as to how far away from the mean you are based on that standard deviation or the Z-score. The other thing that you have the option of doing is turning on ranges. So ranges will show you the range of values that make up the average that you're looking at here. You can see as in the multi-year averages, there's a little Y value and an L value. The Y value is telling you the number of years that are represented in that data, and the L is telling you the number of locations. It gives you some indication as to the reliability, the consistency, and the performance of a variety. I'm going to go ahead and turn those off just so we don't overclutter our table here at the moment. So imagine now you're trying to select a variety based on its performance across multiple parameters. If you're trying to do this in Excel or on a piece of paper, you're often trying to resort and change things, keep track of multiple years worth of data across multiple locations, and this can get quite cumbersome. And so that's where we've taken all of these data fields that I have selected here now as we walk through these, and we take each one of those Z-scores and we now generate a total score average. And that total score average is using the Z-scores from all of the different data fields that we've selected. And in this particular case, if we wanted to sort by our multi-year potential value over here, we're now getting its performance across multiple years. So it's really powerful to be able to pare down a variety's performance down to a single number that is actually correlated now that you've converted it into a Z-score. You can see our top variety here happens to only have 1 year worth of data, so you might proceed with caution on that particular variety. However, you do have flexibility in here to change any of these weights. So if you wanted to give yield a higher weighting than you might give something else, let's give yield total twice the weight. You'll notice that we now have our little ×2 here for yield, and we saw our table update, and these values have now changed and they've resorted based on giving the yield total twice the weight. You can do the same thing for trial blocks as well. You can adjust any one of these. So let's say, for example, that we wanted to give New Mexico twice the weight that we give all the other locations. You can get that ×2 there as well, and you notice that our values have changed and the order has changed. So you have flexibility into how you want to control building out this Z-score. So now that we've kind of ranked our varieties here, there are a few varieties that have popped to the top based on what we're looking at over a 3-year period. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab at first these top ones here. We'll select those. And let's go ahead and do a deeper dive now, a deeper comparison into these varieties. So I've selected those 4 varieties, as you can see indicated here that there's 4 selected. I'm going to go ahead and now say let's compare these. Okay, so that's going to open up this new compare view for me with the varieties that I have selected. And it's going to feel very similar to when we were looking at a single variety. I can see the number of blocks or the locations, the number of years, the number of variety records. And here now I can see a breakdown of all those data fields that I have collected. So for example, looking here at my yield total, I can see there's 3 years worth of data represented in these here across 12 locations, 29 locations, 35 locations, and 16 locations. So similar to before, I could click on a single value and see a breakdown of the summary, but we can actually take that a step further here now that we're comparing multiple varieties. And if I click on the data field itself, it will expand out that and show me the breakdown of each one of those trials across all the varieties that I have selected. So as you'll notice here, there are some gaps, meaning that not all of these varieties existed in all of the trials. So it's not necessarily a true comparison. So if we do have correlated data, we can take advantage of doing a more accurate comparison by turning correlated data on. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that on, and what we're going to see is, okay, all of these varieties only existed in one trial together. So if I wanted to see how they performed relevant to each other in that specific trial, I have that flexibility to do so here in Compare. I'll go ahead and turn that off for now, just to give us more data to look at. Similar to other tools, you have the ability to come in here and generate filters. If we wanted to push out some outliers, we have the ability to do that. For example, I could come in here and say, all right, I need to have it where yield total is over, let's say 250, and we're going to apply our filter on that. And you'll notice that these numbers changed and some of these trials have been filtered out because they didn't exceed that threshold that I've defined. Helpful for weeding out some of your values that are skewed one way or another if you need to. Again, you can share this. You can generate this copy link. It'll give you a unique URL as well as a QR code available for sharing if you need to download that. Take people directly to what you're looking at. You can download this data into Excel. What that will do is it will give you a view just like this in Excel, as well as additional tabs that show you all of the detailed values for each individual trial. That can be powerful to use. You can export that as well as an image. Another interesting feature that you might find useful is there is a breeder feature down here known as the coefficient of inbreeding. It will default to tetraploid for potatoes, but if you're doing any diploid research, you have the ability to make that change here as well. But all you have to do is toggle this on, and you will get a matrix back of if you were to cross MSW 474-1 to Atlantic, there's a 2.08% inbreeding coefficient. Back in analytics, I wanted to show one more feature here. By default, your data is grouped by the data fields. So up here at the top, we saw that each one of these tabs is the data field, and each one of these columns is a trial location or trial block. But we can change that and group our data by a trial block, which is like a trial location. So I could look at this Michigan location, and now my columns are each one of the data fields, and my groupings, my tabs up here, are each trial block or location. I can get all of the same information that I would have had looking at it the other way. It's just a different way of looking at it and arriving at the same results. You can also do the same thing for each one of these trial block categories, or which would be classified as a region. So I can look at a whole region's performance, or I can look at the performance across everything here in this single table. Okay, we've gone ahead and returned to the dashboard, and I just want to highlight one more quick feature. There's certainly a lot more features that could be highlighted, and certainly we're flexible as well to any additional comments for things that would be beneficial to you. But I want to highlight weather data. One of the things that we do is we integrate with different weather sources, whether they're available from weather stations that are on your research farms or in your research plots, or if there's publicly available weather data that is semi-located near some of your research facilities, we will go ahead and pull that and then generate some relevant information for you. So for example, this is the 2022 Michigan Snack Trial. I'm going to click on the weather icon here. And what I'm going to get is it will start your date range at planting and end your date range at harvest. And you have the flexibility to adjust that date range if you need to see anything outside of that range. If there were any specific date events that occurred during the trial, they will be visible. So for example, there was a sample taken here on August 28th, as well as vine kill occurred on the 31st of August. You can see that indicated right there. So what we're looking at here right now is our line up here is our max air temperature. And then the bars down here are showing us our precipitation. Some of our clients will include some of their application dates and practices. And so you could see on here if there was an herbicide or pesticide application, was there a significant weather event that occurred before or after that that could have potentially had an impact on the trial that you're looking at. We'll automatically calculate growing degree days here for you based on the threshold that you want to define as a default, but then you always have the flexibility to modify that threshold if you need to. Then you can look at the raw weather data for whatever weather data fields that are available for that particular weather station. So you can see all of that information here as well. And then lastly, the last tab will show you a pin marker of where that weather station is found. So in this particular case, this one is right here within these research plots that are a part of Michigan State's program. Going back to the weather graph, if you wanted to look at more than a single year's worth of data, you could pull in multi-years. So I just grabbed 3 years worth of data here for our max air temperature. And so I can see in this shaded gray what my 3-year average is, and then my current year overlaid over top of that. Gives you some indication to what the weather was like this year for this particular trial as it has been in previous years. So if you're looking at 3 years worth of data, what was the weather like over that 3-year period? That can be beneficial to your study. So that's a quick overview of just a few of the features available in Medius.Re.